I love the diversity, well, two things. I love the diversity of the sport. You know, you've got events like Sail GP, you've got Olympic sailing, you've got ocean racing. So whatever you are into, there's so many different challenges. And also I just love the nature of the sport. You know, being out on the water, listening to the water rippling under the hull of the boat, the sense of freedom that you get when you're sailing. You know, I'll never forget the first time I sailed a dinghy on my own. I was about 8 years old, and I went out in an Optimus sailing dinghy on my own. You know, it's a little bit like when you learn to drive a car for the first time and no one's telling you what to do. You're in complete control of this thing and you decide what happens and when. Well, one of the things that you have to have if you're going to be a successful racing sailor is almost a sixth sense for the wind. And reading the wind on the water, the clouds, and understanding where the wind is going to be next. So it's a little bit like chess on water. And the better you can read the wind, then that's going to help you massively when it comes to the tactical side of the sport. Determination, determination, fear of losing. I think it's always a big one for any athlete. And you know, when I was young, I felt like I really was determined to try and excel at something, because I didn't particularly excel at school, but sailing was the one thing I felt that I could, and so I was fiercely determined to do that. Now, I guess as I get older, I realise I'm incredibly lucky to have had these opportunities, and the thing I've learned in life, if you have an opportunity, then you have to give it 100% to try and make the most out of that. You just have to do it, because those opportunities don't necessarily come along that many times. So that's what drives me. I think at certain stages in my career I've needed someone to fight against, like you say, a spark to ignite, to say, I'm going to fight back against that and I'm going to work harder and I'm not going to be beaten. And a couple of times in my career I've had to use that. I've had to use a competitor or something else as a challenge, and that's most of the time it's worked, not always. So yeah, I think different people feed off differently to setbacks, to being antagonized. You know, if you think someone's crossed you, then you want to get back and get them back. And sometimes in sport you need that motivation. I think absolutely I probably still have two personalities. One personality when I'm racing, another personality when I'm on land. When I was a youngster, the split was huge. I was very, very shy on the land. I wasn't good at interacting. I was a real introvert. But when you put me on a race course, I would go out and take on anyone, you know, especially as a youngster. I'd take on senior sailors and I would fight and scream and shout and be very aggressive. And then now, I guess as I've matured, those two personalities have sort of met in the middle a little bit. So yeah, I still am hugely passionate about the sport, and I, you know, get frustrated like anyone else does if we don't sail well, if we don't perform. But I'd like to think I'm much better at dealing with that frustration. But then on land, I'm a little bit more personable maybe, and better at dealing with those situations. Well, I think it's a multifaceted sensation. I mean, it's the sort of pain of not achieving what you want to achieve. You put a lot of hard work and effort into something and you really want to achieve that. I guess all sports people have a bit of an ego, so you don't like losing to anybody, and that always frustrates you. And then when you're in a team environment, you want to do well for the team, because everyone's put a lot of time and effort into it. You know, we have the sailors on the boat, but we also have a really great shore team, we have a management team. As I said, everyone's trying really hard and you want to do a good job for the rest of the team. That sailing is, there are any number of set moves which you may or may not decide, but it is and will always be instinctive, because the wind is always changing and it's impossible to predict that totally accurately. And so you have to use your instinct a lot of the time. Quite often there can be many different strategies or tactical decisions that could work, and it's just about instinctively feeling the wind and then deciding what's going to work. Like any other sport, it's a confidence game. If you're confident, you might actually not make absolutely the perfect decision, but if you still execute that really well, it's far better than making the right decision but not executing it well, if that makes sense. So, you know, having that momentum and that confidence in any sport is huge. I think there's that great saying, is that pressure is a privilege. Yeah. And I couldn't agree with that more. I think if you're a top sports person, you want to be in those positions where you're under the utmost pressure, because to my mind, that's what sport and competition is about. And ultimately, if you're going to win some major prizes, you're going to have to deal with it. So you've got to learn to like it and to embrace it and to use it as a tool. So that's really my view. I love being in those high pressures, high stakes scenarios. That gives me a real buzz. It's something that you feed off. Wow, so many. I mean, of course, Roger Federer, Tiger Woods. I certainly admire these sports people like that who, you know, you can see they're able to operate at a different level when they need to, and to really dominate at times. I think, you know, that's massively inspirational and, you know, an incredible achievement, especially in sports such as tennis and golf. It's so competitive. Particularly golf. In many ways, golf is like sailing, because you have the elements. You're racing against competitors, but you're also racing against yourself, or competing against yourself, if that makes sense. Yeah, I think people, it would blow their minds, because there's a misconception with the sport of sailing, particularly now with the performance of these boats. You know, getting speeds close to 100 kilometers an hour when the wind is strong, and boats flying, tight race course. The tele-visual product now is second to none, and you combine all that, it's really a phenomenal league. And like I say, a non-sailor will come and watch this and they'll just be blown away. It's a really credible, exciting, top quality sporting product.